Hi, I'm Kevin Maynor, and you're watching Celebrating Our Musical Community, a live concert series by WWFM, the Classical Network. I'm backstage at LPR in the green room, and joining me shortly will be Avi Avital, the classical mandolinist. He's going to talk to me a little bit about his concert tonight, about the choices that he made in selecting the repertoire, and about his new album that's coming out on Deutsche Grammophon. I just wanted to ask you to start off, the program for tonight. Can you talk about how you chose it? It's obviously related a little bit to your new CD.
Exactly, as tonight is a little bit of celebration as well for me with the release of the new CD at Deutsche Grammophon. I wanted to play a couple of tracks from the CD. The CD is recorded with orchestra, so we made a little version of that orchestra, a string quartet, a mini orchestra to play a couple of the concerti that are on the CD. And yeah, so we're going to play two of the concerti, the Bach concerti from the CD, another Vivaldi, super sweet concerto for the mandolin, and I'll play a couple of pieces as well.
Okay, some unannounced things off the program, or?
Yeah, surprising? I think it's announced. I mean, it's not anything surprise. I'm going to play a contemporary piece for mandolin solo written by a Japanese composer, Kuwahara. Yasuo Kuwahara, and another arrangement of mine to a violin and orchestra piece.
Tell me about the Kuwahara. I mean, that's a little bit of a departure. I think our fans of classical music are going to recognize the Bach, the Vivaldi. Yeah. They're going to love it. What are people going to think about this new piece?
That's what I'm curious to. That's why I'm playing it. Because it's very unique. First of all, it's written for the mandolin, and it takes in consideration the whole development of the mandolin from the time of Vivaldi until our time. So it is super virtuosic piece. It uses different extended techniques on the mandolin. The composer was a mandolin player himself, and he wrote a lot of pieces for the mandolin. So it's really using the whole. It's like written very well for the mandolin, and it kind of shows not everything, but many things that the mandolin can do.
All right. Now, was that a commission of yours, or did you come to the piece
later?
No,
actually, I came across this piece in 2002, I think. Just searching for pieces for mandolin solo. I came across the music by Yasuo Kuwahara. He actually wrote a lot of pieces for mandolin, not only mandolin solo, but mandolin orchestras and different ensembles. Because he was also teaching in Kobe, so he kind of wrote music also for his students to play. And I like especially the mandolin solo pieces by him. There are, I think, about 10.
Yeah, and you do work with composers for commissioning works, right?
Yes, all the time.
Is it difficult to convince them to write for an instrument that is not that common and say, well, it's, I promise you I'm going to play it, but there are going to be other people to play it too?
I think composers are curious to explore something that is new to them, which is not the violin or the piano or an orchestra that they maybe learned or did before. So yeah, the courageous composers say immediately yes, because they have this hunger to discard, to explore something new. And it's always interesting because each and every composer I've been working with interpreted differently the mandolin. I mean, it's very interesting to see how two composers composing, for instance, a mandolin concerto with strings, take two completely different paths. Not only the idea behind the conceptual idea behind the piece, but also the way they write for the mandolin.
The mandolin itself is an interesting instrument. I mean, it's very associated with American roots music here in the States. Of course, in Italy, it's Renaissance music, right? And in all sorts of folk cultures, it's used in different ways. Do you find that these differences between composers are regionally associated? Do you think that has something to do with it, or?
A little bit, because I think every composer, every person I ask people, what do you think? What's the mandolin for you? And everyone has a different association for the mandolin. If you go to Italy, most of the people will say, mandolino, Napoli, pizza. You know, it's like the folk Napolitan instrument. It is an Italian instrument. And when you go here in the States, of course, people associate it with bluegrass. And if you go to Russia, it's with Russian folk, balalaika and domra, similar instruments. People from Greek associated with their music, with the bouzouki. So you know, it's very not only the mandolin, but the whole family of black string instruments. It's very much associated with most of the different musical cultures in the world.
Do you think that gives you a chance to reach more people than, say, the violin, which might be a more narrow range of expression? Do you see it as more universal?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, everyone has some kind of connection to the mandolin, but still also a lot to discover. You see what I mean? So yes, everyone somehow can relate to the mandolin. A lot of people that I've been talking to, or people that came after the concert to say hello, or they write me on Facebook, I feel that everyone finds his sometimes crazy connection to the instrument.
Very personal, right?
Very personal, usually, it's true. But still, it's something that they are discovering.
When you were a younger artist, and you're still young, so there's a lot to go. But when you were really a student professional on that verge, the mandolin is not the most common instrument. So how did you model your career? Where did you find your professional examples for career paths, what to do next, and where to move?
That's an interesting question. I think I can say that I walked, and I'm still walking on a path that I'm inventing every time. So when I was studying at my homeland in Israel, I had violin teachers as my teachers, especially in the music academy. When I graduated from the conservatory, from the local conservatory, went to the music academy to Jerusalem, undergrads, and I graduated with a violin teacher, and I was playing all violin music on the mandolin. For those who don't know, maybe the mandolin is tuned like the violin, so it makes it a little bit easier to adapt pieces written for the violin to the mandolin. But then I was about 21, and I said to myself, okay, I play concerts and so on, but I play only violin music. It doesn't make sense to me. So I went to Italy, and I spent there 8 years of my life. 3 of them studying specifically with a mandolin, a proper mandolin professor. Probably the only one I had, whose original instrument was a mandolin, and I studied and I researched the original repertoire for the mandolin. And after 3 years, I was playing a lot of original repertoire for the mandolin. I said, this is still not it, because it's not. I mean, there are some good pieces, but there is not a lot of repertoire.
Did you feel artistically unfulfilled, like you were seeking something and you just hadn't found it yet?
Yes, because at a certain point in the history, the mandolin was abandoned a little bit after the Baroque. No one of the big composers of the classical and romantic period wrote for the mandolin. It's not like you have a Brahms concerto for the mandolin. Beethoven wrote small pieces, and Mozart donated to the world 3 little songs for mandolin.
Really?
2 for mandolin soprano, and 1 is the famous canzonetta from Don Giovanni for mandolin and baritone. So you play an instrument, but the big composers didn't write for the mandolin. So there is a lot of repertoire, but kind of less, let's call it, famous composers from the Romantic period, and that was not enough. So I'm still doing a combination of the two, original repertoire and violin, or I transcribed music not only from violin but from all kind of instruments. But I felt also that there must be a kind of like a correction to this historical mistake that the mandolin was abandoned, and therefore I commissioned a lot of pieces trying to kind of redefine the new repertoire, redefine the mandolin by new compositions.
Give a second renaissance to the instrument. Did you feel like you had to struggle ever with the idea of legitimacy, that because it was an instrument that did so many transcriptions that it hadn't come onto its own yet, and that you needed to go to Italy to learn the basics before you could branch out, before you could get more experimental?
Mm-hmm. I'm so happy that that's the way it went for me, because it gives the fact that there is no path to follow gave me a lot of and gives me still a lot of creative freedom.
Now I'm curious, because you seem like you experiment with a lot of different genres. I've seen your concerts and listened to those. You released this album and it's all Bach, which seems like it could be, and I don't want to pigeonhole it here, but it could be viewed as a conservative step, right? Do you think of it that way as well, that you needed to cover some of the basics, or
no? So people that know me and follow a little bit my concerts, they know that in the concerts I mix Bach with contemporary Japanese, like you will hear tonight. Japanese music and Balkan music, and I'm doing project with jazz, and I'm doing contemporary music from the most avant-garde to film music, and I like it that way. But in a CD, when you have to create an album, it's I don't feel it's right to try to put everything mixed together, because an album for me has to have a one unique character. Or topic or theme, and the choice of Bach as the first album on a major label was very natural for me, because Bach was there always, like all my life, like the major, like a lighthouse. I mean, I've been always playing his music and always dealt with transcribing his music and always and this music is so absolute that it's one of the few composers that if you play it on any instrument, it sounds Bach and it sounds great and it's so powerful. So it was very natural for me to say, okay, the first CD is going to be Bach, and stay tuned for next CDs.
We certainly will. We're very excited to see what you have. You're from Israel. You studied in Italy for a significant amount of time. You travel all over the world, including the U.S. Why do you live in Berlin now? What appeals to you about that city for what you're doing right now?
So I lived in Italy for almost 8 years, and I've been traveling to Berlin while I was living in Italy quite often, about 2-3 times a year for concerts, of course. And Italy is wonderful, Italy is so beautiful. You have especially as an artist, where aesthetics and beauty are just all over the place. And one way to define being an artist is being in a constant search of beauty. And in Italy, it's everything. It's the good life, really. But I felt that whenever I came to Berlin for a visit, I felt there is something interesting happening. So if you can say about Italy that's beautiful, Berlin was interesting. And
you mean musically or just everything, the city?
So I feel especially these years, there's something happening in the city. Some kind of explosion of creative minds that are keep flowing in the city, and there's a lot of space for creativity in this city. It's a city where every wall becomes a space for art, and
sounds like it's competition for New York.
A little bit. Watch out. And so I wanted to be part of this energy. And I feel this period in Berlin is something that people will talk about, in 60 years, in 100 years.
20 years.
Yes, as a very special period of the city in that terms. And so I felt I want to be, for some years, part of joining the party, let's say.
Great. Well, we're glad that you continue to come to the U.S. to share the party with us.
Oh, yes.
And we're looking forward to the concert tonight, as well as many more to come. And
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. We know we want to let you go and prepare for that concert.